My name is Samantha Mitchell, 32, and I worked my entire adult life to afford my beautiful Victorian home. Every penny saved, every weekend spent renovating instead of socializing. Meanwhile, my family calls me the failure while my perfect sister Vanessa married rich. Imagine my surprise when I discovered they were planning a lavish party at my house to impress wealthy connections, without even asking me. They've always taken me for granted, assumed I'd roll over like always. But this time, I changed the locks before their big night and taught them a lesson they'll never forget. Before I dive into this wild story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button if you've ever had family take advantage of your kindness, and subscribe to see more stories about standing up for yourself. Now, let me tell you how this whole mess started. I should start by explaining how I got my house in the first place. Unlike my sister Vanessa, who married into the Henderson fortune at 25, I built everything from scratch. After college, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously: barista by morning, office assistant by day, and waiting tables at night. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with water damage and questionable neighbors for 6 years while saving every possible dollar. My parents thought I was crazy, wasting my youth as they called it. "Samantha, you're not getting any younger," my mother Diana would say during our monthly family dinners. "Look at your sister, married to Bradley, living in that beautiful mansion in Westbrook Hills, attending charity galas. That's success." What they never understood was that I had a vision. I was working towards something meaningful, independence, on my terms. After those 6 brutal years of saving, I started my own interior design business. It wasn't glamorous at first. I took small jobs, built a portfolio, networked at industry events where I definitely didn't belong. But slowly, things started happening. One satisfied client led to another. My Instagram page featuring before and after transformations gained traction. I was making a name for myself. And then 3 years ago, I found it, the house of my dreams. A 1920s Victorian with gorgeous bones, but desperately in need of love. The real estate agent actually tried to discourage me from buying it. "It's a money pit," she warned. But I could see past the peeling wallpaper and creaky floors. I negotiated the price down and signed the papers with shaking hands. I was 29, and I owned a piece of history in one of the most charming neighborhoods in town. The renovation process was another 2-year labor of love. I did what I could myself and called in favors from contractor clients for the rest. Every decision, from restoring the original hardwood floors to selecting the perfect shade of navy blue for the kitchen cabinets, was made with care. The end result was stunning: 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a sun-drenched reading nook, and a backyard garden that bloomed magnificently in spring. The crown jewel was the wraparound porch where I drank my morning coffee, watching the neighborhood come alive. Did my family appreciate any of this? Not really. At the housewarming party I threw last year, my father George walked through with a critical eye. "Hope you didn't overpay for this place," he muttered, tapping on a wall as if checking for structural damage. "This neighborhood is nice now, but who knows in 5 years?" Meanwhile, Vanessa breezed in 2 hours late with Bradley, carrying a tiny gift bag that contained a scented candle, the same one I'd seen in the clearance bin at Home Goods the week before. "It's cute," she said, looking around with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Very small but cozy. My house is 2,400 square feet. Her pool house is smaller. Despite all this, I maintain the family peace. I hosted Thanksgiving last year, attended Vanessa's ridiculous theme parties, including a yachts and champagne disaster where everyone had to dress in nautical attire, and listened to my mother's not-so-subtle hints about freezing my eggs before it's too late. The most recent family dinner was just 3 weeks ago. I just landed a major client, a boutique hotel downtown that wanted me to redesign their lobby and 5 signature suites. It was the biggest contract of my career. "That's nice, honey," my mother said, barely looking up from cutting her steak. "Vanessa, tell Samantha about your fundraiser. She might get some ideas for her little business." And so began a 20-minute monologue about how Vanessa had organized a charity auction that raised $50,000 for the Children's Hospital. Admirable, Sure, but she wasn't even on the hospital board. She just leveraged Bradley's connections to get wealthy people in a room. The way my parents beamed at her, you'd think she'd personally performed surgery on those children. I was picking at my dessert, contemplating an early exit, when my phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Emma. Hey Sam, confused about something? Is V hosting a party at your house next weekend? She's telling everyone about this amazing garden party at her family property and showed pics of your backyard. Thought you should know. I stared at the message, then at my sister across the table who was laughing at something our father said. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. This was just the beginning of what would become the most ridiculous family drama of my life. The morning after that text from Emma, I did some investigating. It didn't take long to find the evidence. On Vanessa's Instagram, there it was, a beautifully designed digital invitation for an afternoon in bloom, garden party and networking event. The background image was unmistakably my garden, captured during peak spring bloom when the hydrangeas were a stunning blue and my rose bushes were bursting with color. The caption read, "Join us at our family's historic property for an afternoon of connection and conversation. Limited exclusive invitations. Catering by Marcel's. Valet parking provided." My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments. People I didn't know discussing how excited they were to finally see the Mitchell family estate. Vanessa responding with things like, "We've kept it private for years, but it's time to open our doors to the right people. Our family has never owned an estate. My parents live in a perfectly nice but ordinary 4-bedroom suburban house. The only historic property connected to the Mitchell name is MY House, which I alone bought and renovated." I called Vanessa immediately. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding irritated that I'd interrupted whatever important thing she was doing at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Vanessa, why is there an invitation circulating with pictures of my house?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level.
"Oh, that."
"I was going to tell you about it," she said casually. "It's this networking event for Bradley's business associates and some potential investors. It's really important, Sam." "At my house? Without asking me? Don't be dramatic. It's just for an afternoon. Mom and Dad thought it was a great idea. We thought you'd be happy to help the family make connections. It's not like you use that big house for entertaining much anyway." I nearly choked. "It doesn't matter if I throw parties or not. It's my house, Vanessa. My property that I paid for. You can't just decide to host events there." "Mom and Dad already gave the okay on your behalf," she replied, as if that settled everything. "They said you're always looking for ways to contribute to the family. They have no authority to give permission for using my house. Look, I have to go. The caterers are calling. They'll be dropping by your place tomorrow to measure the garden space and check the kitchen facilities." "Wait, what? You gave people keys to my house?" "Just the spare set Mom and Dad have. Don't worry, they're professionals. Listen, I really have to go. We can talk at Sunday dinner." She hung up before I could respond. I immediately called my parents, who confirmed everything Vanessa had said. "Samantha, don't be selfish," my mother scolded. "Your sister needs this. The Hendersons are bringing some very important people, and Vanessa wants to impress them. Their house is being painted that week, and you know how construction dust gets everywhere. Then she should postpone her party or find another venue. You can't just volunteer my house." "It's just for one day," my father chimed in. "Besides, it's good for you to be part of family initiatives. You're always so isolated with that design business of yours." I hung up feeling like I was losing my mind. Had my family always been this entitled? This dismissive of my boundaries? Things got worse when I checked my email and found a message from Elegant Events by Cynthia with a detailed itinerary for the garden party at my address. According to the schedule, not only would the event take place in my garden, but guests would have tours of the ground floor of my home. There was even a note about securing valuables from the main areas, as if I was some kind of hotel staff being instructed to prepare for guests. The final straw came the next day. I had installed a security system with cameras after moving in, mainly for peace of mind living alone. I was at a client meeting when my phone alerted me to movement at my front door. I discreetly checked the app and saw 2 women and a man in catering uniforms standing on my porch, trying keys in my door. I excused myself from the meeting and called my own house. One of the caterers answered, explaining they were there to check the kitchen specifications for Mrs. Henderson's party. "There must be a misunderstanding," I said firmly. "I'm the homeowner, and I haven't authorized any party. Please leave my property immediately." They apologized profusely and left, clearly embarrassed. I later learned from a follow-up call that Vanessa had told them it was her family's second home, and that my sister, who lives there, knows all about it. That evening, as I was stress cleaning my kitchen, my phone pinged with a group text between Vanessa and her friend Lydia that I'd accidentally been included on. Vanessa: "Everything's set with the caterer?" Lydia: "Small hiccup. They said the homeowner told them to leave." Vanessa: "Ugh, that's just Sam being difficult. I'll handle her. It's just Sam's house, she won't mind. It's not like she has an important life or anything. Bradley's connections are coming, for God's sake. She should be grateful we are bringing actual successful people to her little project house." I stared at the phone, something inside me finally snapping. Little project house? My beautiful home that I'd poured my heart, soul, and entire savings into? Not an important life? My thriving business that I'd built from nothing? That was the moment I decided, no more doormat, Samantha. It was time to stand up for myself. After reading that text, I sank onto my kitchen floor and cried. Actually cried, for the first time in years. Not delicate, dignified tears, ugly, hiccuping sobs that left my eyes puffy and my nose running. I cried for the little girl who was always second best, for the teenager whose achievements were footnotes at family gatherings, for the adult who still sought approval from people who would never give it. When the tears finally stopped, I felt hollow but somehow clearer. I pulled out a bottle of wine, poured a generous glass, and called the one person who had always seen me clearly, my best friend Olivia. "They did what?" Olivia exclaimed after I explained the situation. "Sam, that's not just rude, that's literally trespassing. They can't just use your house without permission. Apparently in Mitchell family logic, they can," I replied, taking a long sip of wine. "I've always been family property, so why not my house too?" "This isn't about a borrowed sweater or using your Netflix account," Olivia said. "This is your home, your safe space, the thing you worked for years to afford. And they're just commandeering it." Hearing someone else articulate the violation made it more real somehow. This wasn't me being oversensitive. This was genuinely outrageous behavior. "I don't even know what to do," I admitted. "If I just say no again, they'll keep pressuring me, or worse, they might just show up with guests anyway since they have keys." "First of all, you need to talk to Marcus," Olivia said firmly. Marcus Wilson was our mutual friend from college who had become a successful property lawyer. "Know your legal rights here. And second, you're staying at my place tonight. Guest room is already made up." I protested weakly, but Olivia was insistent. An hour later, I was sitting in her comfortable living room with a fresh glass of wine and Marcus on speakerphone. "Let me get this straight," Marcus said after I'd explained everything. "Your sister, without your knowledge or consent, planned a large event at your property, gave out keys to vendors, and is bringing dozens of strangers into your home? And when confronted, your family basically told you to deal with it." "That about sums it up," I said. "Sam, legally speaking, this is cut and dry. It's your property. You have absolutely no obligation to allow this. In fact, you could report anyone who enters without permission for trespassing." "I don't want to call the cops on my family," I sighed. "Understandable," Marcus replied. "But you should know that you're completely within your rights to take action to secure your property. Changing locks, for instance, would be a reasonable step if unauthorized people have keys." After hanging up with Marcus, Olivia and I talked late into the night. She reminded me of all the times my family had taken advantage of my accommodating nature, the loans to Vanessa that were never repaid, the holidays I hosted without help, the way they minimized my career while expecting me to celebrate every tiny achievement of my sister's. "Remember your cousin's wedding?" Olivia asked. When your mom volunteered you to make all the centerpieces for free and then introduced you as my daughter who does crafts to everyone? I grimaced. I'd spent over $2,000 on materials and worked every night for 2 weeks to create those centerpieces. Or the time your dad needed a new office designed for his insurance business, and you did it at cost, but he still complained about the invoice? They've always been like this, I admitted. I just keep hoping that if I do enough, they'll finally see me. Olivia took my hands. Sam, they won't. Not unless you make them. People don't change when everything's working great for them. And right now, having you as the family doormat is working great for them. That night, sleeping in Olivia's guest room, I had a dream about my house. In the dream, I returned home to find it filled with strangers in fancy clothes, all of them touching my things, sitting on my furniture, criticizing my decor. I tried to tell them to leave, but no sound came out. I was invisible in my own home. I woke up with a racing heart and a decision made. The next morning, I called a locksmith and my security company. Then I texted Olivia. Can I stay with you for about 10 days? I have a plan. Her response was immediate. Guest room is yours for as long as you need. What are we doing? I smiled at the we. Unlike my blood relatives, Olivia had always been in my corner. We're teaching my family a lesson about respect and boundaries, I replied. And I might need help moving some things. Throughout that day, between client appointments, I made several crucial calls. First to Raphael, the top-rated locksmith in town, who could change all my locks and upgrade to a smart security system within 2 days. Then to a storage company to rent a secure unit. Finally, to my assistant Becky, explaining that I'd be working remotely for the next week or so due to a family situation. That evening, as I packed an overnight bag at my house, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. Sam, the event planner says you're being difficult. Why would you tell the caterers to leave? This is really unprofessional. I took a deep breath. Vanessa, I'm going to say this one more time. I did not agree to host your party. I will not be hosting your party. You need to find another venue. But all the invitations are sent. People from Bradley's firm are coming, including the partners. The Hendersons will be there. Do you know how hard it was to get them to commit to a date? Not my problem, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. You should have asked me before sending invitations with my address on them. Mom and Dad are furious with you, she threatened. They said you've always been selfish, but this takes the cake. That familiar stab of guilt hit me, but this time, I pushed through it. Goodbye, Vanessa. Good luck with your party. I suggest the country club. They have lovely gardens. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked my parents' numbers too, at least temporarily. I knew once I started executing my plan, the calls would be relentless. As I looked around at my beautiful home, the custom bookshelves I'd installed myself, the vintage chandelier I'd restored, the perfect shade of sage green I'd tested 15 samples to find, I felt a fierce surge of protectiveness. This wasn't just a house. It was physical proof of everything I'd accomplished on my own, despite my family's lack of faith in me. No one was going to take it from me, even for a day. Not without consequences. The morning after my decision, I woke up early and started methodically documenting everything in my house. I took detailed photos of each room, opened drawers to inventory their contents, and made special note of valuable or irreplaceable items. It wasn't that I thought my family would steal from me, exactly, but I didn't trust the strangers they planned to invite into my home. By noon, Olivia arrived with coffee and reinforcements, our friends Natalie and Lauren, who'd volunteered to help with Operation Boundary. Okay, what's the plan, General? Natalie asked, saluting me with her coffee cup. I laid it out for them. First, we pack up all valuables, sentimental items, and anything I'd be devastated to lose. Those go to storage. Second, Raphael the locksmith is coming tomorrow to change every lock and install a new security system that I can monitor remotely. Third, I temporarily moved to Olivia's guest house until after the planned party date. And then what? Lauren asked. I smiled. Then I watched the chaos unfold when they show up to host a fancy garden party at a house they can't enter. We spent the entire day carefully packing my grandmother's china, my collection of first edition design books, the artwork I'd accumulated over the years, and my jewelry. I removed family photos, important documents, and even my favorite clothes. By evening, my SUV and Olivia's car were packed to the brim with boxes headed for the storage unit I'd rented. What about furniture? Natalie asked as we collapsed on my couch with pizza. Too much work to move, and honestly, I'm not worried about the furniture. I just don't want them in my space, touching my personal things, acting like they own the place I worked so hard for. The next day, Raphael arrived with his team. He was a serious man in his 50s who listened carefully as I explained the situation. Family problems, he said, nodding sympathetically. Seen it before. Don't worry, Ms. Mitchell. By tonight, only your fingerprint or app approval will open these doors. They spent hours replacing every lock, installing a smart doorbell system, and setting up additional security cameras that would send alerts to my phone. Raphael walked me through the new app, showing me how to monitor all entry points remotely and even speak through the doorbell if needed. Nobody gets in unless you want them to, he assured me. Not even with the old keys. I paid him extra for the rush job and the discretion. By that evening, my house was securely locked down, with only Olivia and myself having access through the new system. The final phase of the plan was moving myself to Olivia's guest house, a charming converted garage in her backyard that had its own bathroom and kitchenette. I brought enough clothes for 2 weeks, my laptop and work materials, and some comfort items to make the space feel homey. Welcome to your temporary rebel headquarters, Olivia said, helping me arrange my things. How are you feeling? Nervous, I admitted. But also powerful? I've never really stood up to them like this before. It's about time, she said firmly. I'm proud of you. The first test of the new security system came just 2 days later. My phone alerted me to motion at my front door, and I opened the app to see a woman in a crisp blazer trying my doorbell. The event planner, presumably. I watched as she frowned, checked an address on her phone, and tried again. After a few minutes, she made a call, looking increasingly frustrated. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up again. This time, it was Vanessa at the door with the event planner. I watched as they tried the old key in the new locks, confusion turning to irritation on my sister's face. My blocked phone started blowing up with calls from unknown numbers, likely Vanessa using other people's phones to try to reach me. I ignored them all. That evening, I received an email from Vanessa. Samantha, this childish behavior is completely unacceptable. You changed the locks? Are you serious? Mom and Dad are beside themselves. This party is happening in 3 days. Some of the most important people in Bradley's industry will be there. The Hendersons have confirmed. Do you want to be responsible for destroying your sister's social standing and possibly affecting Bradley's career? Call me immediately. I didn't respond. I also didn't answer the texts from various family members who'd been enlisted to reach out to me. Cousin Emma sent a supportive message, though. Whatever's going on with you and V, I'm guessing she had it coming. Stay strong. The day before the planned party, the calls and messages reached a fever pitch. My mother left a voicemail on my work phone, the only number I hadn't blocked. Samantha Jean Mitchell, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it ends now. Your father and I are deeply disappointed in you. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By embarrassing your sister? The caterers are ordered, the flowers are paid for, and 40 very important people are expecting a lovely event tomorrow. You will call us back and fix this situation immediately. Everything they'd done for me? Like what? Criticize my choices. Minimize my achievements? Use me when it was convenient? I deleted the message. That night, Olivia, Natalie, Lauren, and I had wine in the guest house and monitored my security app together, watching as various vendors showed up at my house throughout the evening, presumably for final preparations, only to leave confused when no one answered. Tomorrow's going to be epic, Lauren said, refilling my glass. Are you ready? I took a deep breath. I think so. Part of me feels terrible, but another part is enjoying standing up for yourself for once. Olivia suggested. I nodded. Exactly. Then cheers to that, Natalie said, raising her glass. to boundaries and self-respect. We clinked glasses, and I tried to ignore the nervous butterflies in my stomach. Tomorrow would either be a turning point in my family relationships or the beginning of an even bigger rift. Either way, there was no going back now. The morning of Vanessa's planned garden party dawned sunny and perfect, ironically ideal weather for an outdoor event. I woke up early, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. Olivia brought coffee to the guest house, and we settled in front of my laptop where I had the security app open, monitoring all camera feeds for my property. "Anything yet?" she asked, handing me a steaming mug. "Nothing. But the invitation said 2 p.m., so we have time." We didn't have to wait long. At 9:17 a.m., the first vehicle pulled up, a catering van. Two men in white uniforms approached my front door with trays of what looked like pre-made hors d'oeuvres. They rang the doorbell, waited, rang again, then made a phone call. After a brief conversation, they returned to their van looking confused but remained parked on the street. "And so it begins," Olivia said. By 10 a.m., the street in front of my house had become a staging area for the party suppliers. A flower delivery truck arrived with elaborate arrangements. A rental company dropped off tables and chairs. A lighting specialist showed up to string what looked like thousands of fairy lights through my garden trees. All of them attempted entry. All of them made calls, and all of them ended up waiting in a growing crowd on my sidewalk. At 10:32 a.m., Vanessa's silver Mercedes screeched to a halt in front of the house. She emerged looking immaculate as always in a pale blue sundress, but her face was tight with stress. Our parents' car pulled up right behind hers. "Here comes the cavalry," I murmured, turning up the volume on the doorbell camera. Vanessa marched up to my door and pressed the doorbell repeatedly. When that yielded no response, she tried her key again, jiggling the handle aggressively. "Samantha," she shouted at the door. "Open up right now. This isn't funny anymore." My mother hurried up behind her, my father trailing with a thunderous expression. "I told you she was being difficult," Vanessa said to them. "She changed the locks." "Who does that?" "Someone whose house was being invaded without permission," I whispered to Olivia, who squeezed my shoulder supportively. My father stepped forward and pounded on the door. "Samantha, we know you're in there. Open this door immediately." The event planner approached them cautiously. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm so sorry, but we really need to start setting up. The guests will arrive in just a few hours, and we haven't even accessed the space yet." Vanessa turned to her with a strained smile. "Just a small family misunderstanding. Give us a moment." The woman retreated, and Vanessa pulled out her phone. A second later, my phone lit up with her call. After all the ignoring and blocking, I decided it was finally time to answer. "Hello, Vanessa," I said calmly. "Where are you? Why aren't you opening the door? There are a dozen people outside your house right now." "I'm not home," I replied. "And I won't be home today." "What do you mean you're not home? Where are you? The party starts in 4 hours. I told you multiple times that I did not give permission for this party. You ignored me. So I made other plans." I could hear my mother in the background demanding that Vanessa put me on speakerphone. A moment later, I heard my mother's voice clearly. "Samantha Jean Mitchell, you come home this instant and open this door. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" "Actually, Mom, I do. It must be really embarrassing to tell people you can host a party at a house that isn't yours, only to discover you can't get in. Almost as embarrassing as having your achievements constantly minimized by your own family. Is that what this is about?" My father's voice boomed. "Some perceived slight? You're throwing a tantrum because you don't get enough attention?" "This is about boundaries," I said firmly. "My house is not family property. It's mine. I worked for it, I paid for it, I renovated it. You don't get to use it without my permission, and you definitely don't get to hand out keys to strangers." "We're your parents," my mother exclaimed. "That house wouldn't even exist if we hadn't raised you." I had to laugh at the absurdity. "So, what, you think you own everything I'll ever have because you did the basic parental duty of raising your child? Do you think you own Vanessa's house too?" "That's different," my father sputtered. "That's Bradley's house. And this is my house," I countered. Not the Mitchell family estate, or whatever fiction Vanessa's been selling to her friends. Vanessa's voice came back on, lower and threatening. Sam, I have 40 extremely important people showing up in a few hours. If you ruin this for me, I swear to God. You'll what? I challenged. Treat me worse than you already do? Make more dismissive comments about my little project house and my unimportant life? Call me selfish for not letting you use my home without permission? There was a stunned silence on the other end. How did you know I said that? Vanessa finally asked, her voice smaller. You accidentally included me on that group text with Lydia. I saw everything, Vanessa. That's when I decided I was done being the family doormat. More silence, then my mother again. Samantha, please. We can discuss family grievances another time. Right now, we need you to come home and open the door. People are waiting. Those aren't my people, and this isn't my party. I said no, repeatedly, and you all ignored me. Now you can deal with the consequences. We'll call a locksmith, my father threatened. Go ahead, I replied. It's a brand new security system. They won't compromise it without proof of ownership, which only I have. And if anyone tries to break in, the police will be automatically notified. You'd call the police on your own family? My mother gasped. I wouldn't have to. The system would do it automatically. But this can all be avoided if you simply respect my no and find another venue. In 4 hours? Vanessa shrieked. That's impossible. Not my problem, I said, surprised by how steady my voice remained. You created this situation by planning an event at a location you don't control. Now you get to solve it. I ended the call, feeling shaky but resolute. Olivia gave me a high five. You were amazing. Did you see their faces when you shut them down? We continued watching the security feeds as my family huddled in a tense discussion on my porch. Eventually, Vanessa got on her phone, presumably trying to find a last-minute alternative venue. My parents split up, my mother talking to the event planner, my father on his phone pacing the sidewalk. Around noon, the first of the valets arrived. By 1 p.m., early guests started appearing, men in summer suits and women in elegant dresses, looking confused at the commotion on the sidewalk instead of a sophisticated garden party. The real drama peaked at 1:40 p.m. when a sleek black SUV pulled up and an older couple emerged, the Hendersons, Bradley's parents, based on photos I'd seen. They approached the chaos with visible confusion. Even from the security camera, I could see Vanessa's expression of pure panic as she hurried to intercept them, Bradley appearing from somewhere to join her. There was an intense conversation, with Vanessa gesticulating frantically and Mrs. Henderson's face growing increasingly disapproving. More guests arrived to the same scene, no party, just a locked house and a frazzled hostess. Some left immediately. Others stood around awkwardly. I watched as Vanessa's carefully curated social event disintegrated in real time. At 2:30 p.m., most of the guests had left. The caterers began packing up their unserved food. The rental companies started loading tables and chairs back onto their truck. And in the midst of it all, Vanessa sat on my front steps, mascara streaking down her face, while Bradley spoke intensely with his disappointed-looking parents. I almost feel bad for her, I said to Olivia as we watched. Don't, she replied firmly. She brought this on herself by treating you and your home like properties she could use at will. By 4 p.m., the street was empty except for my family's cars. My parents and sister sat in a grim circle on my front lawn, looking utterly defeated. As I watched them on the camera feed, my phone buzzed with a text from Bradley, surprisingly. Samantha, I just learned the full story from Vanessa. I had no idea she hadn't gotten your permission for this event. I'm truly sorry for the boundary violation. If you're willing to talk, I'd like to help resolve this family situation. It was the first genuine apology I'd received from anyone, and it came from the person I was least connected to. I showed Olivia the text. Interesting, she said. Sounds like at least one person is starting to get it. I replied to Bradley. Thank you for acknowledging the boundary violation. I'm not ready to talk today, but maybe next week once things have cooled down. Then I put down my phone and closed the laptop. I'd seen enough. Come on, Olivia said gently. Let's go get dinner. You've had a stressful day. As we left the guest house, I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for years. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood firm against my family's expectations and demands. It wasn't easy, and the fallout would be significant, but in that moment, I knew I'd done the right thing for myself. And that was worth celebrating, at least for tonight. The week following the lockout, as Olivia had dubbed it, was intense. My phone exploded with messages once I unblocked my family members. Some were angry and accusatory, others guilt-inducing, and a surprising number were from extended family members expressing support after hearing what happened. My mother's texts oscillated between fury, "I've never been so humiliated in my life," and martyrdom. "After all I've sacrificed for you, this is how you repay me." My father was more direct. "You've damaged this family's reputation. I hope you're satisfied." Vanessa's messages were the most volatile, ranging from rage, "You've ruined everything," to desperation, "The Hendersons barely speak to me now," to manipulative, "Bradley's business connections think our family is dysfunctional." I responded to none of them, taking the time at Olivia's to process my feelings and determine my next steps. I worked remotely, had dinner with friends who supported me, and even scheduled a few sessions with a therapist Natalie had recommended. Family dynamics don't change overnight, Dr. Rivera told me during our first session. You've disrupted a long-established pattern where you accommodate everyone else's needs at the expense of your own. There will be resistance before there's acceptance. On day 8, I received an unexpected visitor at Olivia's. I was working on design plans in the guest house when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Bradley Henderson standing on the porch alone. Curious, I opened the door. "Samantha," he said, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I know you said next week, but I was hoping we could talk sooner. May I come in?" I hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside to let him enter. Bradley had always been a peripheral figure in family gatherings, polite but distant, usually absorbed in work calls or conversations with my father about investments. I realized I barely knew him despite him being married to my sister for 5 years. "I want to apologize again," he began once we were seated. "What Vanessa did was wrong. Using your home without permission, giving out keys, all of it." "Thank you," I said, genuinely surprised by his directness. "But shouldn't you be supporting your wife right now?" Bradley sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I am supporting her, just not in the way she wants. Vanessa needs to take responsibility for her actions. We've been talking a lot this week, and some hard truths have come out." "Like what?" I asked cautiously. "Like the fact that she's deeply insecure about not having her own accomplishments. She admits she's jealous of you, Samantha." I nearly choked on my tea. Jealous? Of me? She's the golden child, the successful one with a perfect life. In your parents' eyes, maybe. But Vanessa sees you differently. You built something from nothing. Your business, your home, they're yours. She feels like everything she has came through me or your parents' connections. This perspective was so foreign to me that I struggled to process it. But she's always looked down on my career, my house, my choices. "Because they threaten her," Bradley said simply. "She's afraid to admit that your path might be more fulfilling than hers." We talked for over an hour. Bradley revealed things about my sister I'd never known, her abandoned dreams of becoming an architect, her fear of disappointing our parents, her growing realization that social status wasn't as satisfying as she'd expected. "This doesn't excuse what she did," Bradley emphasized. "But I'm hoping it helps you understand where it came from. And for what it's worth, I've told her and your parents that they were completely in the wrong." When Bradley left, he handed me an envelope. "Vanessa wrote this herself. No input from me or your parents. Read it when you're ready." I waited until that evening to open my sister's letter. Inside was a handwritten apology, messy and blotched in places, so unlike Vanessa's usual perfect presentation.
"Sam, I'm sorry.
Really, truly sorry. What I did was wrong and invasive and disrespectful. I've spent my whole life thinking I was better than you because Mom and Dad made me feel that way. But the truth is, I've always admired how you built your life on your own terms. I used your house because I'm proud of it, proud that my sister created something so beautiful. That doesn't make it right. I should have asked. I should have respected your boundaries. I don't expect forgiveness right away, but I hope someday we can start over. It wasn't perfect, but it felt sincere in a way few interactions with my sister ever had. The next day, I moved back into my house. It felt strange at first, knowing how close it had come to being invaded. I walked through each room, reconnecting with the space, before bringing my belongings back from storage and Olivia's guest house. 3 days later, I agreed to meet my family at a neutral location, a restaurant downtown that specialized in Sunday brunch. Walking in, I spotted them at a corner table, all looking unusually subdued. My mother had clearly been crying, her eyes puffy despite careful makeup. My father seemed smaller somehow, less imposing. Vanessa was pale, her usual confidence absent. "Samantha," my mother said as I sat down, "thank you for coming." The conversation started awkwardly, with careful small talk about the weather and the restaurant's decor. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been doing some reflecting," he said stiffly. "We may have overstepped with regard to your house." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him. "You think?" I replied, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "You gave away keys to my home without permission. You dismissed my explicit refusal. You called me selfish for not wanting strangers traipsing through my private space." "We were wrong," my mother said quietly, surprising me. "We've always treated you as an extension of ourselves rather than as your own person. Bradley helped us see that." I glanced at Vanessa, who looked down at her plate. "Bradley's been very direct with all of us," she murmured. "I spent my entire life trying to earn your approval," I said, looking between my parents. "Working myself to exhaustion, achieving things you never thought I could, buying a house you never thought I'd afford. And none of it was ever enough. You still saw me as the family resource, not a person with my own boundaries and dreams." "You're right," my father admitted, the words seeming physically painful for him to say. "We've been unfair to you, dismissive of your accomplishments because they didn't fit our narrow definition of success." "I always thought you had it so easy," Vanessa added, looking up at me. "Mom and Dad were hard on you, but they never had expectations for me beyond marrying well. They never pushed me to achieve anything on my own." "We thought we were protecting you," our mother said to Vanessa. "But we did you a disservice, too." The conversation continued through brunch, painful but necessary. Old resentment surfaced. Tears were shed, even by my father, which I'd never seen before. Family patterns were named and examined. By the time the check came, we were all emotionally exhausted, but somehow lighter. "So where do we go from here?" my mother asked tentatively. "I need things to change," I said firmly. "Real change, not just apologies that fade when convenient. I need my boundaries respected, my home treated as mine alone, and my career acknowledged as legitimate." "That's fair," my father nodded. "And I need to know that I'm valued for who I am, not what I can provide the family or how I make you look to others." "We can do better," my mother promised. "We want to do better." As we walked out of the restaurant, Vanessa pulled me aside. "I really am sorry, Sam. And I'm also kind of in awe of you. Standing up to all of us like that took guts." I studied my sister's face, searching for the usual calculation or insincerity, but found only genuine remorse and something else, respect, maybe. "Thanks," I said simply. "And for what it's worth, it's not too late for you to build something of your own too." She nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about that a lot this week. Maybe it's time." As I drove home, I realized that for the first time in my adult life, I'd stood in my truth with my family and hadn't backed down. Whether their change of heart would last remained to be seen, but something fundamental had shifted in our dynamic, and I had no intention of letting it shift back. 3 months after what my family now sheepishly referred to as the incident, I stood in my kitchen arranging a platter of appetizers. The house smelled of fresh flowers and the lemon cake baking in the oven. Through the window, I could see Olivia and Natalie setting up a drink station on the patio, laughing about something as they arranged bottles and glasses. Today, I was hosting a party of my own, a proper housewarming on my terms. The doorbell rang, and I checked the security app out of habit before going to answer it. My parents stood on the porch, my father holding a gift bag, my mother clutching a bouquet of sunflowers. Right on time, I greeted them, opening the door. "We wouldn't want to be late to our daughter's party," my mother said, handing me the flowers. "These reminded me of your nursery wallpaper. Remember the yellow room with the sunflower border?" It was a small thing, but significant. My mother referencing a positive childhood memory instead of a perceived failure or shortcoming. "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched. "Come in, you're the first guests." My father handed me the gift bag, awkwardly. "It's a housewarming present. I know you've been here a while, but we never properly celebrated your achievement." Inside the bag was a beautifully framed deed to my house, professionally matted with an inscription at the bottom. "Proudly owned by Samantha Mitchell, a home built on determination." I looked up at my father, speechless. "I thought you could hang it in your office," he said gruffly. "You should be proud. Not many people your age accomplish what you have, entirely on their own." "Thank you," I managed, throat tight with unexpected emotion. The doorbell rang again, Vanessa and Bradley. My sister entered cautiously, as if still uncertain of her welcome. 3 months of weekly coffee meetings had begun to rebuild our relationship, but we were still finding our footing. "Sam, the house looks amazing," she said, looking around appreciatively. "Those new bookshelves in the living room. Did you build those yourself?" "I designed them, but had them built. I do have limits," I laughed. "Well, they're gorgeous. Actually, I was wondering if you might help me with something similar for our home office. I'm converting part of it into a studio space." "A studio?" I asked, surprised. Bradley smiled proudly. "Vanessa's going back to school for architectural design. Part-time for now, but she's serious about it." My sister actually blushed. "It's something I've always wanted to do, and after everything that happened, well, life's too short not to pursue your passions, right?" Over the next hour, more guests arrived, friends from work, clients who'd become friends, neighbors, and a few extended family members who'd been supportive during the fallout. My cousin Emma arrived with her boyfriend, immediately pulling me into a hug. "The house looks incredible, Sam. And I hear your business is booming?" "It is," I confirmed. "Actually, I just hired 2 junior designers to help with the workload. We're expanding into commercial spaces now, too." "That's amazing. Who would have thought your little cousin would become a design mogul?" As I mingled among my guests, I noticed something remarkable. My parents were actually telling people about my business achievements. Not with the dismissive tone they'd used in the past. "Samantha does little decorating projects," but with genuine pride. "Our daughter just landed the contract for the new boutique hotel downtown." I overheard my father telling our neighbor. "Beat out 3 established firms for the bid." Later, in the kitchen, I found Vanessa helping Olivia arrange dessert plates. "Hey," my sister said when she saw me. "I hope it's okay that I'm in here. I wanted to make myself useful." "Of course it's okay," I assured her. "Thanks for helping." Vanessa glanced around to make sure we weren't overheard. "I've been meaning to tell you something. Remember the Hendersons? After the party disaster?" I nodded, bracing myself. "Well, Mrs. Henderson called me last week. She said she was impressed by how our family worked through such a difficult situation. She actually invited me to join the hospital board, on my own merits, not as Bradley's wife or for our social connections." "Vanessa, that's wonderful. It's ironic, isn't it? The failed party ended up creating a real opportunity, not the superficial networking I was chasing." As the evening progressed, I found myself on the porch swing with Bradley, taking a moment of quiet amid the pleasant buzz of conversation from inside. "You seem happy," he observed. "I am," I realized. "And not just because the party's going well. Things feel different. Real." "Standing up for yourself changed everything," Bradley said. "Not just for you, but for all of us. Vanessa's pursuing her own dreams now." Your parents are confronting some hard truths about how they've treated both their daughters. Even I'm delegating more at work to be present at home. All because I changed some locks, I mused. Because you valued yourself enough to set boundaries, he corrected. That's a powerful thing. Later, as guests began to leave, my mother pulled me aside. Samantha, I want you to know, I'm proud of you. Not just for your success, but for standing up for yourself. It couldn't have been easy, especially with how we raised you. It wasn't, I admitted, but it was necessary. Your father and I have been seeing a family therapist, she confessed, surprising me again. We're trying to understand where we went wrong, how we created such different experiences for you and your sister. That's a big step, Mom. It's overdue, she said simply.
We don't want to lose you, Samantha.
You're too important. After the last guest departed, I found myself alone in my living room, surrounded by the evidence of a successful gathering. Empty glasses, crumb-scattered plates, rearranged cushions. But unlike previous family events I'd hosted, I didn't feel drained or resentful. I felt fulfilled. My phone pinged with a text from Olivia. Proud of you, Rebel. You've come a long way from the doormat days. Red heart. I smiled, looking around at my beautiful home. Still mine, still a sanctuary, but now with healthier connections to the people in my life. The locks on my doors were the same ones Raphael had installed 3 months ago, but the more important boundaries I'd established were invisible ones. Expectations about respect, acknowledgement of my autonomy, and recognition of my achievements. Those boundaries had been painful to enforce at first, but they had ultimately led to healing I hadn't thought possible. My relationship with my family wasn't perfect, but it was honest now, grounded in reality rather than roles we'd been assigned years ago. As I turned off lights and closed up the house for the night, I realized that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to change the locks, literally or figuratively, and insist on being treated with the respect you deserve. It might cause chaos initially, but in that disruption lies the possibility of something better. Authentic connections built on mutual respect rather than obligation or control. That lesson was worth every uncomfortable moment of the journey. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? What happened when you finally stood up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear how others have navigated similar situations. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about personal growth and family dynamics. Don't forget to hit that share button if you know someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Thank you for spending time with me today, and remember, your space, your rules. You deserve respect, and sometimes you have to be the one to teach people how to give it to you.